Olivia's heart pounded in her chest as the airlock hissed violently, the harsh clang of metal reverberating down the hollow corridors of the derelict satellite metropolis. Lights flickered sporadically, casting twisted shadows that danced like specters across the debris-laden floor. She pressed herself against the cold, unforgiving wall, her breath shallow and rapid. Behind her, the rest of her team huddled, their faces pale and grim, eyes darting nervously at every whisper of sound. The mission had been straightforward: extract a high-value target from the ruins of the once glorious orbital city of Icarus. But straightforward turned to treacherous when the alien mercenaries descended like locusts, armed with technology beyond human comprehension, their strategies bizarrely mirroring Earth's most outlandish fictional military doctrines. A sudden explosion rocked the station, sending a shower of sparks raining down like a hellish storm. The corridor lit up, and in the brief illumination, Olivia caught sight of them, tall, sinewy figures with skin like burnished copper and eyes that glowed with an eerie blue luminescence. She recognized the familiar insignia etched onto their armor: a gleaming serpent coiled around a moon, the mark of the Karatha, a formidable mercenary faction known across the galaxy for their ruthlessness. "Move, move, move," Olivia barked through gritted teeth, pushing her team forward. Her voice was seasoned with authority, a product of countless missions where failure meant death. They ran, feet pounding against the trembling floor as another blast rocked the structure, sending metallic shrapnel skittering across the ground like deadly shurikens. "What's their angle?" "Oh," grunted Marcus, her second in command, his voice barely audible over the cacophony of chaos. "They're moving like they've read the damn script to Star Raiders." "Doesn't matter," Olivia snapped, her mind racing as she tried to piece together their enemy's erratic tactics. "They're not here for autographs. We need to focus on the target." The target was Henry Duval, a former military strategist turned recluse, who had holed up in the heart of Icarus after selling classified information to the highest bidder. The Karatha had been contracted by an unknown entity to eliminate him, and Olivia's team was hired to do the exact opposite. The promise of redemption, or at least a hefty payday, was too tempting to resist. A piercing howl echoed through the corridors, chilling and otherworldly. Olivia's blood ran cold. The Karatha were honing in, their alien instincts attuned to the scent of fear and desperation. She signaled her team to diverge, taking a narrow passage that twisted through the bowels of the metropolis, away from the main thoroughfares that the mercenaries would surely patrol. The walls here were stained with the remnants of the city's former opulence, crimson banners still clinging to the ceiling, their golden embroidery tarnished by time and neglect. Olivia's mind flashed back to the stories she'd read as a child, tales of enchanted worlds and heroic battles. But this was no fairy tale. This was survival. They reached a central chamber, its vaulted ceiling rising high above like the nave of a forgotten cathedral. In the center stood a massive console, its screens cracked and sparking but still alive with data streams. Duval was there, hunched over the console, his fingers flying over the controls with manic intensity. "Duval," Olivia called out, her voice echoing in the vast space. "We're here to get you out." Duval's head snapped up, his eyes wide with a mix of fear and recognition. "I didn't think they'd send you," he said, his voice hoarse and tinged with relief. "The Karatha are right behind us," Marcus interjected, casting a wary glance back down the corridor they had come from. "We need to move, now." Duval hesitated, his gaze flickering to the console. "I can't leave this," he murmured, gesturing to the data cascading down the screens. "These are the last remnants of... We don't have time for this." Olivia shouted, grabbing his arm and yanking him away. "Whatever it is, it won't matter if we're dead." A shudder ran through the station, the floor tilting precariously as the Karatha unleashed another barrage. The lights flickered, died, and then came back with a dim, sickly glow. Panic flared in Olivia's chest, but she quashed it with practiced ease, focusing on the task at hand. They dashed through the corridors, the sound of pursuit ever present and growing closer. The Karatha moved with an uncanny precision, their movements reminiscent of mythical warriors, as though they had studied Earth's most fantastical legends and woven them into their tactics. It was disconcerting, fighting an enemy that seemed to manifest from the pages of fiction, every move a calculated echo of stories meant to entertain, not to kill. A sudden burst of gunfire erupted from ahead, forcing Olivia's team to dive for cover. The Karatha had anticipated their route, cutting them off with a lethal precision that left no room for error. Olivia's mind raced, trying to calculate their chances, her eyes scanning for any advantage. "We're pinned," Marcus shouted, returning fire with a quick burst from his rifle. The shots ricocheted off the Karatha's armor, harmless as raindrops on steel. Desperation clawed at Olivia, the weight of the mission pressing down on her shoulders. She had led her team into countless scrapes, but this was different, a theater of war dictated by alien interpretations of Earth's own myths and legends, twisted into a deadly reality. Then, as if in answer to some unspoken plea, a memory surfaced, an old Earth movie her father had loved, a tale of impossible odds and daring ingenuity. Inspiration struck like lightning. "Marcus, give me covering fire on my mark," Olivia ordered, her voice steady, eyes locked on their foes. "I'm going to need a distraction." He nodded, understanding flashing between them in an instant. "You got it, boss." "On three," Olivia said, her mind already racing ahead. 1, 2, 3. Marcus sprang up, unleashing a torrent of fire that forced the Karatha to take cover. Olivia moved, swift and silent, darting down a side passage that curved around behind the enemy line. Her heart hammered in her ears, drowning out the cacophony of battle as she slipped through the shadows. Reaching a vantage point above the alien mercenaries, Olivia took a deep breath, steeling herself for what came next. She raised her weapon, aiming for the exposed power cells on the Karatha's gear, an oversight in their otherwise impeccable armor, a flaw inspired by human fiction. She fired, the shots ringing out like a symphony, each one finding its mark. The Karatha recoiled in shock as their systems overloaded, their coordinated assault thrown into disarray. Olivia seized the moment, signaling her team to advance. They surged forward, the tide turning in their favor as they cut through the disorganized ranks of their foes. "Go, go, go," Olivia urged, her voice sharp with determination. They didn't have long before the Karatha regrouped, their alien minds adapting to the unexpected setback. The team raced forward, Duval stumbling along with them, his eyes wide with disbelief. They reached a docking bay, the sleek outline of their escape ship gleaming in the dim light. Marcus punched in the launch codes, the hatch hissing open with a reassuring whine. They piled in, hearts pounding, every second stretched taut with anticipation. The engines roared to life, a triumphant crescendo against the backdrop of the ruined city. As they rose above the shattered skyline of Icarus, the Karatha regrouped below, their frustration palpable even from a distance. But the human mercenaries had done the impossible, outwitting an enemy that had turned humanity's own stories against them. Olivia slumped into her seat, exhaustion washing over her like a tidal wave. Yet beneath it, a spark of hope kindled anew, a belief that redemption was possible, that even in the darkest corners of the universe, humanity's ingenuity and spirit could shine through. The ship soared into the void, leaving the ruined satellite metropolis behind, a testament to the resilience of those who dared to dream and fight against insurmountable odds. "What's next?" Marcus asked, his voice low, a hint of a smile playing at the corners of his lips. Olivia met his gaze, her own smile weary but defiant. "We get Duval to safety, collect our pay, and then..." She paused, the future unfurling before her like a blank canvas. "And then we find the next challenge. Whatever it takes to make things right." The stars stretched out beyond the viewport, infinite and unyielding, a reminder of both the vastness of the galaxy and the indomitable spirit of those who dared to traverse it. As they sped away from Icarus, Olivia couldn't shake the feeling that they had stepped into something larger than themselves, a story still unfolding, the ending yet unwritten. But for the first time in a long time, she felt ready to face it. The control room of the mercenary ship Valhalla was a cacophony of alarms and flashing lights. Captain Elise Carter stood at the central console, her eyes fixed on the main viewscreen. The vastness of space sprawled before her, dotted with debris from the recent skirmish with the Zenthari raiders. The assault had come out of nowhere, leaving the Valhalla vulnerable and its crew scrambling. "Report," Elise barked, her voice cutting through the din. Lieutenant Marco Reyes, her second in command, was hunched over a nearby station, his fingers flying over the control panel. "Shields are at 20%, Captain. We're venting atmosphere on decks 4 and 5. Engineering is reporting critical damage to the starboard thrusters." Elise cursed under her breath. The Zenthari were relentless, their sleek, insectoid ships darting in and out of view, their plasma cannons leaving trails of destruction in their wake. But it wasn't just the damage to the Valhalla that gnawed at her. It was the knowledge that they were vastly outnumbered and alone in this forsaken quadrant. From the corner of her eye, Elise caught sight of Dr. Nia Patel, the ship's medic, kneeling beside an injured crew member. Nia's hands were steady despite the chaos, her face a mask of determination as she worked to stabilize the young engineer. It was in moments like these that Elise was reminded of why she had handpicked each member of her crew. They were resilient, resourceful, traits that would be needed now more than ever. "Open a channel to engineering," Elise commanded, and within moments, the screen flickered to show the grease-streaked face of Chief Engineer Miles Takahashi. "Give me some good news, Miles," she said, though the set of her jaw suggested she was bracing for the opposite. "Captain, I'm working on rerouting power from non-essential systems to the shields, but the thrusters are another story. We can't maneuver effectively without them," Miles replied, his voice a mix of frustration and urgency. Elise nodded, her mind racing. They needed those thrusters operational if they were to stand any chance of escaping the Xenthari onslaught. "Do what you can. We'll buy you some time." "Understood, Captain." Elise turned her attention back to the viewscreen, where the Xenthari ships were regrouping for another attack run. "Marco, I need you to get tactical. Find me a weakness in their formation." Marco's eyes flicked to his console, analyzing the enemy's movements. "Their lead ship is coordinating the others. If we can take it out, we might disrupt their attack pattern." "Then that's our target," Elise said, a plan forming in her mind. "But we need to draw them in closer, make them overcommit." Nia joined them, her hands now stained with blood. "Captain, if we can't flee, perhaps we can make it costly for them." Elise met Nia's gaze, finding a fierce determination there. The medic had always been a voice for those who couldn't speak, and she was right. If they couldn't escape, they would make the Xenthari pay for every inch. "Prepare the boarding pods," Elise ordered. "We'll take the fight to them." Marco's eyes widened. "Captain, that's a suicide run." "Only if we fail," Elise countered, her voice steady. "We hit their lead ship, take out their command, and create enough chaos for the Valhalla to slip through." Marco hesitated, then nodded, his resolve hardening. "I'll get the pods ready." As the crew sprang into action, Elise allowed herself a moment to reflect. She had joined the mercenary life out of necessity, a way to escape her past and the mistakes that haunted her. But here, with this crew, she had found a new purpose. This mission would test them all, but it was a chance for redemption, a chance to prove to herself, and to them, that they could rise above. The boarding pods were small, cramped vessels designed for quick, covert insertion. Elise and a team of seasoned fighters, including Marco and Nia, strapped in, their faces set with grim determination. Each of them carried the weight of their own histories, their own battles, but here, they were united in a single cause. As the hatch sealed and the pods ejected into space, Elise felt the familiar surge of adrenaline. The Xenthari ships loomed larger as they approached, the lead vessel bristling with weaponry. It was a formidable target, but if they could breach its defenses, they might just stand a chance. "Pods are approaching the target," Marco reported, his voice crackling over the comms. Elise tightened her grip on the controls, her mind laser-focused. "Prepare for impact. We go in hard and fast." The pods slammed into the Xenthari ship, the impact jarring but controlled. Explosions rocked the hull as the boarding charges detonated, breaching the alien vessel's skin. The team poured out, weapons ready, the harsh environment of the ship a stark contrast to the sterile corridors of the Valhalla. The Xenthari were waiting, tall, chitin-armored figures with multifaceted eyes and mandibles clicking in eerie unison. Elise had faced them before, knew their tactics and their ruthlessness. But this time, she had something they didn't expect, a crew willing to risk everything for each other. The fight was brutal and fast-paced. Elise moved with precision, her blaster a seamless extension of her will. Marco was at her side, his tactical mind always a step ahead, while Nia provided cover, her medical pack slung over her shoulder, ready to save the living and honor the fallen. As they pushed deeper into the ship, the corridors twisted in alien geometry, a labyrinth designed to disorient invaders. But Elise's instincts guided them, her determination unwavering. They reached the command center, the heart of the beast. "Captain," Marco shouted, pointing at a terminal. "If we can disable their communications, we might throw their fleet into disarray." Elise nodded, gesturing for Nia to cover them. Together, she and Marco hacked into the system, their fingers a blur on the alien interface. The Xentheory code was complex, but Elise had always been good at seeing patterns where others saw chaos. The screen flickered and suddenly, the ship shuddered as its systems went haywire. Lights dimmed and the low thrum of engines faltered. "That should do it," Marco said, a rare smile breaking through the tension. But the victory was short-lived. An alarm blared, a shrill, insistent sound that cut through the chaos. Elisa's heart sank. Reinforcements were on their way. "We need to move," she ordered, the urgency in her voice unmistakable. As they retreated, the ship around them seemed to come alive with activity. Elise could feel the odds shifting once more, the balance of power teetering precariously. They had achieved their objective, but now they had to escape before the full might of the Xentheory crashed down upon them. Back at the breach point, Elise could see the Valhalla in the distance, its silhouette a beacon of hope in the void. But between them and their ship lay a rapidly closing net of enemy fighters. "We've got to punch through," Marco said, his eyes scanning the void. Elise nodded, her mind racing. There was one last card to play, a desperate gamble that could secure their escape. "Marco, Nia, take the team and get back to the Valhalla." "I'll cover you, Captain." "No," Nia protested, her voice raw with emotion. "That's an order," Elise replied, her tone leaving no room for argument. "I'll draw their fire, give you a window." Marco's expression was a mix of admiration and frustration. He clasped Elisa's shoulder, a silent promise passing between them. "We'll see you back on the ship." As the team launched towards safety, Elise turned her attention to the Xentheory fighters closing in. She felt the familiar weight of responsibility pressing down on her, but beneath it, a fierce resolve. This was her chance to make things right, to stand for something greater than herself. The first wave hit like a storm, plasma fire streaking past her pod. Elise danced through the chaos, every maneuver a calculated risk. The Xentheory were relentless, but they hadn't counted on a human's stubborn will to survive. "Valhalla, this is Carter," she transmitted, her voice steady. "Prepare for immediate extraction." On the view screen, she saw the Valhalla's remaining guns turn, opening a corridor of fire. It was now or never. Elise pushed the pod to its limits, the structure groaning under the strain. And then, with a final burst of speed, she broke free, the Valhalla's hangar bay opening like a welcoming embrace. The pod crashed inside, the impact jarring but survivable. Elise staggered from the wreckage, her breath ragged but her spirit unbroken. The crew was there to meet her, voices overlapping in a chaotic symphony of relief and admiration. Elise waved them off, her focus on the view screen where the Xentheory fleet was regrouping, their lead ship now a drifting hulk. "Status report," she demanded, shaking off the exhaustion that threatened to overtake her. Miles' voice crackled over the comms, a lifeline in the madness. "Thrusters are online, Captain. We've got a clear path." "Then let's not waste it," Elise replied, her mind already calculating their next move. As the Valhalla surged forward, Elise allowed herself a moment to breathe, to reflect on what they had achieved. It wasn't victory, not yet, but it was a step towards redemption, towards proving that humanity could stand against the darkness and emerge stronger. But as the ship sped away, the danger wasn't over. The Xentheory were regrouping, their forces converging once more. Elise knew they would follow, that this was only the beginning. "Keep us on course for the nearest jump point," she ordered, her gaze fixed on the stars ahead. "And prepare for another fight. We'll show them what humans are made of." The crew responded with determination, each of them united in purpose. They were mercenaries, yes, but they were also more than that. In this moment, they were a force to be reckoned with, a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. The Xentheory would not relent, but neither would they. The battle was far from over, and as Elise took her place on the bridge, she vowed that they would face whatever came next together. The odds were against them, the danger escalating with every passing moment. But in the face of overwhelming adversity, Elise found a renewed sense of hope. They would fight, they would endure, and they would prove that humanity was here to stay. The cavernous command deck hummed with a mixture of nervous energy and quiet desperation. Captain Adrian Jackson, leader of the Earth-born mercenary group known as the Iron Wolves, stood at the central console, his eyes scanning over the holographic display of the battlefield. The vastness of space was filled with an ominous glow as alien fleets from the Zorax Alliance encircled the human stronghold. What had begun as a defense mission had spiraled into chaos. The Zorax, having intercepted centuries of Earth's cultural output, had mistakenly believed that humanity's vast array of science fiction was a blueprint for advanced military strategy. The aliens had armed themselves with what they thought were Earth's most potent weapons, derived from these fictions, and now used them against humanity with devastating effect. Jax ran a hand through his tousled hair, glancing at his crew as they worked to hold the line. Each member of the Iron Wolves was a seasoned veteran, but the weight of this battle was starting to show. Lieutenant Sarah Ortiz, his second in command, was furiously typing commands into her console, trying to decipher the aliens' next move. Her eyes occasionally flickered to Jax, seeking direction, reassurance, or perhaps a miracle. Jax, Ortiz called, her voice tinged with urgency, we're detecting increased energy readings from the Zorax mothership. It looks like they're preparing another wave of attacks, and we still haven't cracked their encryption codes. Jax nodded, his expression grim. We need to buy more time and find a way to disrupt their systems. If we can't decode their signals, we'll remain blind and fighting in the dark. At the helm, Corporal Mark Sparks Reynolds was busy rerouting power, trying to boost their defensive shields. Sparks, the engineering prodigy with a penchant for unconventional solutions, was already sweating under the pressure. Captain, I can give you more power to the frontal shields, but we're draining reserves fast. If their next wave is any stronger, we'll manage, Jax interrupted, though the confidence in his voice wavered. He knew they were at a breaking point. Outmatched both in numbers and technology, the humans were pressed against the wall, their survival hanging by a thread. Nearby, Dr. Elena Kim, the team's tactical analyst and former linguist, was scrutinizing captured Zorax data. Her presence was a quiet reminder of the cerebral might the human race possessed. Elena's calm demeanor masked the whirlwind of thoughts racing through her mind, searching for patterns, exploiting weaknesses. Elena, Jax addressed her, anything we can use? She shook her head, frustration evident. Their technology mirrors what they interpreted from our fiction. It's bizarre. They have energy weapons modeled after laser swords, and they're using cloaking shields like those in old TV shows. It's like fighting our own imaginations. Jax sighed, the weight of impossible odds pressing heavily on his shoulders. The Zorax believed they were facing a species with near-mythical capabilities, and their relentless attacks reflected that fear. In reality, humanity was fighting with whatever scraps remained after years of interstellar conflict. The truth was, despite their knowledge, the Iron Wolves were cornered by an enemy that believed in their legends more than they did. And it was this belief that gave the Zorax their edge, a conviction that humanity could only match if they could somehow turn their myths into reality. Meanwhile, beyond the command deck, the rest of the ship trembled with each distant explosion. The crew, a tight-knit group forged in the crucible of countless battles, clung to their roles. They were all aware of the stakes, the desperation that hummed beneath the surface. Yet, amid the chaos, bonds were tested and forged anew. Private Lena Yates, the team's communications specialist, was wrestling with the Zorax jamming frequencies. Her voice broke through the noise, directed at Ortiz. Lieutenant, I've managed to clear a channel, but it won't last. If we need to call for reinforcements, now's the time. Ortiz shook her head, underlining the bleakness of their situation. There are no reinforcements, Yates. All nearby fleets are engaged. We're on our own. Despite the dire circumstances, Jax saw something in Ortiz's eyes, determination, a refusal to yield. It was this same fire he'd seen before, in skirmishes that seemed hopeless. It was the human spirit, unyielding and defiant. But even as hope flickered, the reality was that they were outgunned. The Zorax ships, vast and bristling with the latest in misunderstood Earth-inspired weaponry, were proving too much for the Iron Wolves. As the minutes turned into hours, the severity of their outmatched position became painfully evident. Then, as if things couldn't get worse, the ship's alarms blared, the sound echoing like a harbinger of doom. Sparks' voice rose above the din, panic lacing his words. Captain, we've got a breach. They've boarded us. A collective breath was held as they realized the immediate danger had just become intimate. The Zorax, in their relentless pursuit, had sent boarding parties to finish what their ships could not. Jax's mind raced, the safety of his crew paramount. Ortiz, take a team and repel the boarders. Sparks, seal off critical sections and reroute power to internal defenses. Elena, I need you to stay here and help coordinate. We can't let them take this ship. Ortiz saluted, her eyes meeting Jax's with a mix of resolve and unspoken promises. We'll hold them, Captain. As Ortiz and a squad of Marines made their way to the breach, Jax felt the weight of each decision. Every choice held the potential to tip the scales, but whether towards salvation or doom, he couldn't tell. It was a gamble, every step fraught with the unknown. In the corridors of the ship, the clash began. The Zorax, towering figures with armor reminiscent of Earth's fictional soldiers, stormed through, their weapons blazing. Ortiz led the defense, her focus unyielding as she coordinated counterattacks and fallback positions. Despite their best efforts, the Zorax were relentless. With each passing moment, the struggle intensified, the ship's corridors echoing with the sounds of battle. Yet, amid the chaos, humanity's resilience began to shine through. Ortiz and her team fought with a fervor born of desperation and hope, a testament to the indomitable will of their race. Back on the command deck, Jax and Elena worked tirelessly, trying to find an edge. The situation was growing increasingly dire, but neither of them would show weakness. Elena's fingers danced over her console, her mind a whirlwind of strategy and possibilities. Jax, she said suddenly, her voice cutting through the tension, I've been analyzing their tactics. They're methodical but predictable. If we can anticipate their next move, we might be able to turn the tide, at least temporarily. Jax nodded, his eyes narrowing as he considered her words. If we can disrupt their rhythm, even for a moment, we can regroup and counterattack. But we need a breakthrough. As if in response, Sparks chimed in, his voice tinged with a hint of excitement. Captain, I might have something. It's a long shot, but I've been working on a way to overload our power grid. It could create a massive EMP, disrupting their systems. But it'll drain everything, leave us dead in the water. Jax considered the option, weighing the risk against the slim chance of success. It was a desperate move, but desperate was all they had left. Do it, Sparks. Make it count. Yes, sir, Sparks replied, determination stealing his resolve. His hands flew over the controls, initiating the sequence that could be their salvation or their undoing. As Sparks worked, Jax turned his attention back to Elena. Once the EMP hits, we need to be ready. This is our one shot to break their hold. Elena nodded, her mind already running through scenarios. I'll coordinate with Ortiz. If we can regain control of key systems, we might just have a chance. The tension on the command deck was palpable, every second stretching into eternity. The fate of the Iron Wolves, and possibly humanity's future, hung in the balance. As Jax prepared to give the final order, he took a moment to look at his crew. They were tired, battered, but still standing. In their eyes, he saw not just fear, but something more, a fierce determination, a refusal to surrender to the darkness. All right, Jax said, his voice firm and resolute. This is it, let's show them what humans are made of. The countdown began, and as the final seconds ticked away, Jax felt a surge of hope. It was fragile, like a flame flickering in the wind, but it was there, a reminder of humanity's enduring spirit. And then, with a blinding flash, the EMP detonated, sending a shockwave through the void. The ship shuddered, its systems flickering as the energy surge washed over them. For a brief, eternal moment, time seemed to stand still. As the light faded, Jax watched the holographic display, his heart pounding in his chest. The Zorax ships, once an overwhelming presence, were now silent, their systems momentarily disabled. It was the opening they needed. Now, Jax shouted, the command echoing through the ship. Hit them with everything we've got. Ortiz and her team, seizing the moment, launched their counterattack, pushing back against the boarded Zorax. On the command deck, Elena and Jax worked in tandem, coordinating their forces with newfound clarity. The tide was turning, but the outcome was still uncertain. They had bought themselves time, but what they needed now was a miracle. As the battle raged on, Jax found himself reflecting on the strange and wondrous journey that had brought them here. The stories of Earth's past, the myths and legends that had inspired fear in their enemies, now served as a beacon of hope. It was a reminder that humanity's greatest strength was not in its machines or technology, but in its people. The fight was far from over, but as long as the Iron Wolves stood together, they would continue to defy the odds. For in the heart of every human beat the promise of redemption, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, there was always a chance for a new beginning. And as the battle for survival continued, Jax knew that they would keep fighting, not just for themselves, but for all of humanity. The dim light of the ship's corridors flickered as the team moved through, their boots echoing dully against the metallic flooring. The air was thick with tension, each member of the crew acutely aware of the stakes. Captain Marcus, Mace, Hayes led them with a determined stride, his mind racing through contingencies and plans. Behind him, Lieutenant Kara Salazar adjusted the strap of her rifle, her eyes scanning for any signs of movement. The mission had already gone sideways when they discovered the enemy had anticipated their arrival, setting traps and blockades at every turn. The ship's navigation systems were compromised, forcing them to rely on outdated schematics and Mace's gut instincts. Yet, despite the chaos, there was a burning resilience in Kara's expression, a determination to prove herself worthy of redemption. The enemy, the merciless Kaliran, a coalition of alien warriors known for their ruthless tactics, were hot on their trail. The Kaliran had managed to intercept their communications, and now it seemed every step the humans took was countered by an unforeseen obstacle. They had lost 2 team members to a snare trap just the previous day, and the weight of those losses hung like a shroud over the group. "Eyes up, everyone," Mace instructed, his voice a calm anchor in the storm. "We need to get to the control room and disable their systems. It's our only chance of leveling the playing field." As they turned a corner, a mechanical hiss sounded. A set of blast doors abruptly slammed shut in front of them, cutting off their path. Mace clenched his jaw, studying the sealed barrier. The Kaliran were toying with them, closing off routes, herding them like cattle. "Looks like they've got the upper hand," grunted Sergeant Tom Tank Thompson, the team's heavy weapons specialist. His nickname was fitting. He stood like a granite fortress next to the door, his face set in grim determination. Mace knelt beside the door panel, prying off the cover with his knife. "Kara, see if you can override the system. Tank, cover our rear." Kara moved swiftly, her fingers dancing over the wires and circuits within. Her mind worked like a well-oiled machine, recalling long hours spent in training. But the system was more advanced than they'd anticipated, and the Kaliran had encrypted it. She paused, the weight of the situation pressing on her shoulders. "Mace, this encryption. It's beyond anything we've cracked before," she admitted, frustration seeping into her voice. "We don't have the luxury of time, Lieutenant," Mace replied, his patience unwavering. "Adapt and overcome." Kara nodded, her resolve hardening. She could feel the eyes of her team on her, the silent pressure of their expectations. She recalibrated her approach, using a more intuitive, less conventional method, something she'd once thought of as a desperate measure. As she worked, she thought of the lives depending on her ability to adapt. Suddenly, a spark caught in the circuits, and the door hissed open. The team hurried through, the victory a small but significant testament to human tenacity. The corridor opened into a vast, cylindrical chamber filled with pulsating machinery. They were close to the ship's core, where the enemy's control systems were housed. However, as they advanced, a low growl emanated from the shadows. The Kaliran had not left the area unguarded. From the darkness, a group of Kaliran warriors emerged, their weapons trained on the intruders. Mace's heart sank. It was an ambush. The team quickly took cover, the air erupting with the crackle of gunfire and energy weapons. Pinned down, Mace knew they couldn't win a prolonged firefight. His mind raced, searching for a way out. "Tank, flashbangs," he ordered. Tank nodded, his massive hands deftly pulling the grenades from his belt. With a calculated throw, the corridor filled with a blinding flash and deafening noise. Mace seized the moment, rallying his team to charge forward, using the chaos to their advantage. The Kaliran, momentarily disoriented, reeled back. The humans pressed on with renewed vigor, pushing through the confusion. Kara's rifle was an extension of herself, each shot deliberate and precise, her mind processing the battlefield with an efficiency born of necessity. As they reached the heart of the chamber, Mace spotted a console adorned with alien glyphs, the control terminal. "Kara, get us in," he shouted over the din. Kara sprinted to the console, her mind already formulating strategies. The interface was alien, both literally and figuratively, but she'd always had a knack for seeing patterns where others saw chaos. She delved into the system, the glow of the screen illuminating her determined face. Meanwhile, Mace and Tank held the line, their focus unyielding as they fended off the relentless assault. Yet, as the seconds dragged into minutes, Mace felt the pressure mounting. The Kaliran were regrouping, their tactical prowess evident in their coordinated attacks. "Kara, we need that system down, now," Mace urged, desperation creeping into his voice. "Almost there," she replied, her voice a mix of concentration and urgency. Her fingers flew over the keys, bypassing security protocols and decrypting alien code with an ingenuity driven by survival. Finally, with a triumphant beep, the system yielded. The lights flickered and the machinery around them stuttered, the Kaliran control systems disrupted. The immediate threat was neutralized, but their victory was short-lived. An alarm blared through the ship, a deep, resonant sound that sent a shiver of dread through the team. The Kaliran had initiated a self-destruct sequence, a last-ditch effort to deny the humans any potential gain. "We've got 5 minutes to get out of here," Mace shouted, urgency propelling them towards the exit. The corridors blurred as they sprinted for their lives, each step resonating with the ticking countdown. The ship's structure groaned ominously, the self-destruct countdown echoing in their ears. As they neared their exit point, an explosion rocked the corridor, throwing them off their feet. Mace's vision blurred as he hit the ground, his ears ringing. Tank was the first to recover, pulling Mace to his feet with a grimace. Kara was already on her feet, her face pale but determined. They were so close, yet the obstacles seemed insurmountable. "Move," Mace urged, their bodies protesting against the strain but their spirits unbroken. They pushed through the smoke and debris, emerging into a hangar where their escape vessel awaited. But it wasn't over yet. The Kaliran had anticipated their escape route and had left a contingent of warriors to block their path. The final confrontation loomed, a desperate battle for survival. With no time for strategy, the team attacked with everything they had. It was a brutal, visceral fight, each side driven by desperation. Mace's heart pounded in his chest, his mind a flurry of reflexes and instincts honed by years of combat. Kara moved like a whirlwind, her adaptability the key to their survival as she switched between weapons, exploiting every advantage her human intuition offered. Tank's bellowed orders cut through the chaos, his presence a rallying point for the team. The battle reached a fever pitch, and Mace fought with a singular focus: get his team out alive. As the last Kaliran fell, the team stumbled towards the ship, every second precious. They clambered aboard, Mace slamming the hatch shut as Kara fired up the engines. The hangar trembled, the ship's self-destruct sequence nearing its climax. Their escape vessel roared to life, lifting off with a jolt. The ship shuddered as it left the hangar, the external camera showing the Kaliran vessel starting to disintegrate behind them. But as they soared into the void of space, the adrenaline faded, leaving only the stark reality of their situation. They had escaped, but at great cost. The mission's success was overshadowed by the lives lost, the haunting memories of those who hadn't made it out. In the silence of the cockpit, Mace looked at his team, the weight of command heavy on his shoulders. Kara met his gaze, her eyes a mix of relief and sorrow. They had survived, but the journey was far from over. As they drifted among the stars, the darkness of space a reminder of the unknowns that lay ahead, Mace knew that their darkest moment was yet to come. They had proven their adaptability, their resilience, but the path to redemption was fraught with challenges yet unseen. In the face of overwhelming odds, the human spirit burned brightly, an indomitable force against the encroaching dark. And as they journeyed into the unknown, they carried with them the hope that their sacrifices would not be in vain. The oxygen alarm blared like a mournful banshee through the cramped quarters of the Valiant Dawn, a reminder of their dwindling resources and seemingly inevitable doom. Captain Alara Quinn surveyed the haggard faces of her crew, each one reflecting a kaleidoscope of emotions. Fear, exhaustion, and something else. Something that couldn't be extinguished even in these darkest times. Hope. It was faint, flickering like a candle struggling against a gust, but it was there. They were pinned down on the fringe of the Carthian expanse, a sector unrelenting in its hostility. The Valiant Dawn had been pushed to its limits, her hull scarred and her systems failing. Her crew, once a motley band of mercenaries with nothing in common but their humanity, now clung together as one, unified in their shared determination to survive. Their mission to intercept and dismantle the Cerothian weapon supply line had gone awry, ambushed by forces far larger and more prepared than intelligence reports had indicated. The Cerothians, reptilian and ruthless, had anticipated their strike, and now they circled like vultures waiting for the feast. Alara tore her eyes from the small viewport, the vastness of space a backdrop to their desperation. "We can't stay here," she said, her voice steely with resolve. "We either find a way out, or we make sure they remember us." Her first officer, Lieutenant Markov, nodded grimly. His eyes were bloodshot, the result of too many sleepless nights and too many close calls. "Engineering reports the warp drive is offline. Manual recalibration is possible, but it'll take time we don't have." "Then we make time," Alara said, conviction ringing in her words. "We need to give them something else to think about." She turned to the tactical display, her mind racing through possibilities. The Cerothians had all but declared victory, their vessels forming a blockade around the Valiant Dawn. But arrogance was their weakness, and Alara intended to exploit it. "We'll deploy the decoys," she decided. "Make it look like we're trying to break through their lines. When they move to intercept, we'll slip through the gap." Markov raised an eyebrow. "That's a hell of a gamble, Captain." "High stakes, Lieutenant. It's what we signed up for," she replied, her lips curling into a wry smile. "Get the crew ready. We move in 10. The crew sprang into action, each member a cog in the precarious machine that was their survival plan. The atmosphere on the bridge was tense, but beneath it was an undercurrent of determination, a refusal to bow down to fate. Alara watched as the decoys were launched, their signatures mimicking the Valiant Dawn's emissions. As expected, the Cerothian vessels shifted, inching forward to close the perceived breach. Her heart pounded in sync with the countdown displayed on the tactical console. The minutes ticked by, each one an eternity, until finally, the gap yawned like a chasm in the enemy's ranks. "Now," Alara commanded, and the engines roared to life, propelling the Valiant Dawn forward, her fate hanging in the balance. The ship shuddered violently as it pushed through the blockade, the Cerothians scrambling to correct their formation. Alara held her breath, every fiber of her being willing the ship to hold together, to defy the odds. Alarms blared anew as enemy fire peppered the hull, a relentless barrage that threatened to tear them apart. But the Valiant Dawn was a stubborn beast, and her crew was more stubborn still. They pressed on, the light of distant stars flashing through the viewport as they careened toward freedom. They broke through, the silence of space suddenly overwhelming after the cacophony of battle. For a moment, there was nothing but the hum of the ship, the collective breath of a crew who had stared death in the face and refused to flinch. Alara allowed herself a moment of triumph, a brief exhale of relief, before the enormity of their situation settled back in. They had escaped, but they were far from safe. The Cerothians would regroup, and their resources were all but depleted. "We're not out of the woods yet," she reminded them, her voice cutting through the momentary calm. "But we've bought ourselves time, and as long as we have that, we've got a fighting chance." Her words were a balm, soothing the raw edges of their collective fear. The crew nodded, their resolve hardening once more. They were battered, yes, but not broken. Never broken. In the dim glow of the bridge, Alara turned to Markov. "Status on the warp drive?" "Still offline," he replied. "But we've got a skeleton crew working on it. They're optimistic." "Good," Alara said, allowing herself a small smile. "Keep me updated. I want options on the table." As the crew dispersed to their stations, Alara remained rooted in place, her mind a whirl of calculations and contingencies. They needed a plan, a way to turn the tide against the Cerothians and complete their mission. Failure was not an option, not when so much depended on their success. The Cerothians had grown complacent, confident in their superiority. It was a mistake they would come to regret. Human tenacity was a force of nature, unyielding and relentless, a storm that built quietly until it raged with unstoppable fury. Alara's thoughts drifted to Earth, to the blue-green jewel of their origin. She thought of the generations who had dared to venture into the stars, pioneers who had faced the unknown with courage and curiosity. They were the inheritors of that legacy, and by the stars, they would uphold it. The hours bled into one another as the crew worked tirelessly, each person driven by the knowledge that failure was not an option. They had seen what the Cerothians were capable of, the devastation they wrought with impunity. Alara would not allow that darkness to spread unchecked. In the engineering bay, the heart of the ship, technicians worked in a feverish dance, their hands a blur as they coaxed the warp drive back to life. Sparks flew, and the air was thick with the acrid scent of burning circuits, but they pressed on, undeterred. It was in the small hours, when weariness threatened to overtake them, that Alara felt the change. A shift, subtle yet undeniable, a spark igniting within the crew. It was the moment when desperation transformed into determination, when survival became victory. Markov's voice crackled over the comm, breathless with excitement. "Captain, we've got something. It's not pretty, but it'll get us moving." Alara's heart soared. "How long?" 30 minutes, maybe less. "We're running on a shoestring here, but it'll hold." "Good work," she said, her voice steady despite the elation that surged through her. "Prepare for immediate departure once it's online. We need to put distance between us and those bastards." As the minutes ticked down, Alara paced the bridge, her mind a torrent of strategy and counter-strategy. The Cerothians would not let them slip away easily, but they had the element of surprise on their side. If they could just stay one step ahead. The comm crackled again, this time with a report from their scout ships. "Captain, we've detected a weak point in the Cerothian defenses. It's risky, but it could be our way in." Alara studied the data, her mind racing. It was a slim chance, but one they couldn't afford to ignore. "Prepare to move on my mark," she ordered, her voice cutting through the tension like a blade. The ship thrummed beneath her feet, the warp drive coming online with a reluctant growl. Alara's fingers danced over the controls, plotting their course with precision born of necessity. "Mark," she commanded, and the valiant Dawn leapt forward, her engines a roar of defiance. The Cerothians were caught off guard, their formation slow to react as the human ship hurtled toward the breach. Alara's pulse thundered in her ears, but her focus was unyielding, her will a force of its own. They punched through the gap, the Cerothian vessels wheeling in pursuit, but it was too late. The valiant Dawn surged ahead, her crew driven by a singular purpose, a goal that burned brighter than any star. In that moment, amidst the chaos and the fire, Alara saw it. The path to victory, the way forward. It was narrow and fraught with danger, but it was there, waiting to be seized. The Cerothians, overconfident in their supposed dominance, had underestimated the resilience of humanity. They had failed to understand the depths of their spirit, the ferocity of their resolve. The valiant Dawn escaped into the void, a shadow moving through the stars, but within her hull burned the light of defiance, a blaze that refused to be extinguished. As they sped toward their next objective, Alara knew the tide was turning. They had been pushed to the brink, but they had not fallen. And now, with the seeds of rebellion sown, they would rise again. The darkest hour was upon them, but dawn was coming, and with it, the promise of redemption. The air was thick with tension as the mercenary crew, led by Captain Alara Hayes, stood on the precipice of desperation. Their mission to retrieve and secure the ancient artifact from the rogue faction of the Zalcor had been fraught with unforeseen challenges. The alien stronghold, a fortress of obsidian and steel, loomed ahead, its defenses impenetrable, its guardians relentless. Each skirmish had left them bruised, but not broken, a testament to their spirit, even in the seemingly insurmountable odds. Alara wiped the sweat from her brow, her eyes scanning the terrain for any glimmer of hope. The Zalcor had proven to be formidable foes, their technology and sheer numbers overwhelming. But as she looked around at her team, she saw more than fatigue, she saw determination, a fierce resolve that simmered beneath the surface. Still, doubt gnawed at her. Could they truly overcome the insurmountable? Marcus, the team's strategist and tech expert, hunched over a holographic map, his mind working tirelessly to find a chink in the fortress's armor. "There's got to be a way in," he muttered, frustration coloring his voice. "Their security protocols are tight, but there must be something they're overlooking." Alara moved to his side, her presence a grounding force. "Marcus, what about that thermal vent you mentioned earlier? Could it be a way in?" He paused, fingers hovering over the map. "It's risky. The vent is narrow and heavily monitored, but..." His voice trailed off as he considered the possibility. "With the right distraction, we might just create an opening." As if on cue, Tessa, the team's weapons specialist, stepped forward. Her eyes gleamed with a mix of mischief and resolve. "I've been working on something that might just do the trick," she said, holding up a device that looked like a cross between a grenade and a miniature fusion reactor. "What is that?" Alara asked, curiosity piqued. Tessa grinned. "A little piece of human ingenuity. It's a disruption charge. It'll fry their surveillance for a good 10 minutes. More than enough time to slip in through that vent." Alara felt a flicker of hope stir within her. This was it. The moment where their human adaptability and inventiveness could turn the tide. "All right," she said, decisively. "We create a diversion. Marcus takes down their comms, and we get inside to retrieve the artifact." As the plan took shape, the team moved with a renewed sense of purpose. They were no longer just mercenaries for hire. They were a force to be reckoned with, a testament to humanity's ability to rise above adversity. The Zalcor may have underestimated them, relying on superior technology and numbers, but they did not understand the human spirit, the drive to persist against impossible odds. The night was silent as the team approached the fortress under the cover of darkness, each step a testament to their resolve. Marcus, equipped with a portable hacking device, crouched near a console, his fingers dancing over the interface. Within moments, the fortress's alarms blared, a cacophony of confusion and chaos. Tessa's disruption charge followed, a brilliant burst of light and sound that left the Zalcor scrambling, their systems temporarily blinded. It was the break they needed, and Alara led the charge toward the thermal vent, her heart pounding with adrenaline and resolve. Inside the fortress, the air was stifling and hot, the vent a narrow passage that forced them to move in single file. Marcus took the lead, his knowledge of the fortress's layout guiding them through the labyrinthine corridors. Behind him, Alara felt the resolve of her team, their presence a reminder of why they fought, not just for the artifact, but for the survival and honor of humanity. As they neared the artifact's chamber, the walls seemed to pulse with a strange energy, the air thick with anticipation. The Zalcor had never expected this, a species they deemed primitive and disorganized penetrating their defenses with such precision. Yet, here they were, standing on the cusp of victory. The chamber was vast, dominated by the artifact that hovered in the center, suspended by a field of alien energy. It glowed with an ethereal light, ancient and powerful. But as they approached, the ground shook, and the air crackled with the arrival of Zalcor reinforcements. "They're coming," Marcus warned, his voice steady despite the impending danger. Alara nodded, her mind racing. "We hold them off while Tessa and Marcus secure the artifact. This is what we've trained for." The battle that ensued was fierce and unyielding. The Zalcor charged, their weapons blazing, but the humans held their ground, their resolve only strengthening with each passing moment. Alara fought with a determination born of desperation and hope, her every move a testament to human tenacity. As Tessa and Marcus worked to disable the artifact's energy field, Alara and the rest of the team fended off wave after wave of attackers. They fought with everything they had, tapping into reserves of strength they never knew existed. The Zalcor's superior technology was no match for the raw courage and ingenuity of the human spirit. And then, in a moment that seemed to stretch into eternity, the artifact's field flickered and died. Tessa let out a cry of triumph as she and Marcus secured the ancient relic, its mysteries now within their grasp. The Zalcor, witnessing the impossible, faltered. Their confidence, once unshakable, now wavered in the face of humanity's unexpected strength. They, who had regarded humans as no more than pests, now faced a force that defied their understanding. With the artifact secured, Alara called for a retreat, her team falling back with practiced efficiency. As they raced through the corridors, the fortress crumbling around them, she could feel the shift in the air, a turning point not just in this battle, but in the perception of humanity across the stars. Outside, the night was still young, the stars above a testament to the vastness of the universe and the new place humanity had carved for itself within it. As the team regrouped, breathless and battered but victorious, Alara knew this was only the beginning. The Zalcor, and indeed the galaxy, would have to reckon with the reality that humans were not to be underestimated. They were more than adaptable, they were indomitable, driven by a spirit that refused to be extinguished. In the days that followed, word of their victory spread, a ripple through the fabric of the galaxy. Other species, long oppressed or underestimated, began to take notice, inspired by the humans who dared to defy the odds. Alara stood with her team, the artifact now safely in their possession, its secrets awaiting discovery. She looked at her comrades, each one a testament to humanity's strength and resilience. They had come together not just as a team, but as a symbol of hope and renewal, a force that would not be easily forgotten. In that moment, beneath the vast canopy of stars, Alara realized that their mission had become something much greater. It was a declaration, a proclamation of humanity's place in the cosmos. They had shown the galaxy what it meant to be human, and in doing so, had begun to forge a new path forward. Let the Zalcor and others take heed. Humanity had arrived, and they would not be underestimated again. In the heart of the vast expanse, a desolate expanse of nothingness littered with the carcasses of ancient stars, the ISS Aegis glided through the void, its hull glistening against the backdrop of a million twinkling lights. This was the final stretch, the last stand against the alien conglomerate that had underestimated the resilience of humanity. The mercenary crew aboard the Aegis, a motley collection of the best and brightest Earth had to offer, stood poised for the final assault. They had forged themselves in the crucible of countless battles, each one a testament to the indomitable spirit that fueled their resolve. At the head of this operation was Commander Rachel Anson, a veteran whose sharp blue eyes could pierce through the darkness of space with the intensity of a laser. Her reputation as a strategist was legendary, her plans as intricate as they were effective. She was the heart of this operation, and her crew was the hammer she wielded. The antagonists, the Xentheri Union, were a coalition of alien races that prided themselves on their technological superiority. They saw humans as little more than primitive pests, incapable of posing a real threat. It was this hubris that had led them to this confrontation, and it would be their undoing. The Xentheri fleet lay ahead, a sprawling armada of sleek, silver vessels hovering like predatory birds. They had amassed their forces in a bid to crush the human resistance once and for all. But as the Aegis and her escort ships closed in, there was an electric tension in the air, a prelude to the storm that was about to break. "Commander, all systems are go," reported Lieutenant Marcus Chen, his fingers flying over the console, recalibrating the targeting systems with the precision of a surgeon. "Shields are at full capacity, and weapons systems are primed." Rachel nodded, her gaze unwavering as she surveyed the tactical display. "Good. Open a channel to the fleet." A moment later, the voices of the captains across the human fleet crackled to life, a chorus of resolve and determination. "This is it, people," Rachel began, her voice steady and commanding. "The Xentheri think they've got us cornered. They believe we're outgunned and outmatched. But they've forgotten one crucial detail: we're human. And humans don't back down." A cheer erupted through the comms, a unified roar that surged through the ships, binding them together in a shared purpose. "Let's remind them why we've survived everything they've thrown at us. Let's show them what happens when you push humanity to the brink." As the battle began, the stars themselves seemed to dim in anticipation. The Xentheri ships surged forward, their sleek hulls bristling with energy. Plasma bolts and ion beams sliced through the void, a deadly ballet of destruction. But the humans responded with equal ferocity. The Aegis weaved through the chaos with the grace of a dancer, her turrets spitting fire as they unleashed a storm of retaliatory strikes. The other human ships followed suit, each one a testament to human ingenuity and tenacity. The Xentheri were relentless, their ships executing maneuvers with mechanical precision. But there was a flaw, a fundamental weakness that they couldn't comprehend. They lacked the creativity, the unpredictability that defined human combat. "Chen, recalibrate the forward cannons to fire in staggered bursts," Rachel ordered, her mind calculating a dozen variables at once. "We'll disrupt their formation and create an opening." "Aye, Commander," Chen replied, his hands a blur of motion. The Aegis's cannons fired in rapid succession, the staggered bursts creating a cascade of energy that tore through the enemy ranks. The Xentheri ships faltered, their formation unraveling as they struggled to adapt. "Now, all units, focus fire on their flagship," Rachel commanded, her voice rising above the din of battle. The human fleet converged, their combined firepower converging on the Xentheri flagship, a colossal dreadnought that loomed like a metallic leviathan. Its shields flared under the assault, a radiant barrier that strained against the onslaught. Inside the flagship, the Xentheri commander, a being of cold calculation and arrogance, watched the unfolding disaster with mounting disbelief. The humans were not only holding their ground, they were winning. "This cannot be," the Xentheri commander hissed, his voice quivering with a mix of anger and fear. They're adapting too quickly. Back on the Aegis, Rachel seized the moment. "Prepare boarding teams," she ordered. "We're going to take that ship." Aboard the Aegis, the boarding teams suited up, their exosuits gleaming with high-tech armor capable of withstanding the harshest conditions. These were the finest warriors humanity had to offer, each one honed to perfection through rigorous training and experience. Captain Aaron Torres, leader of the boarding assault, checked his gear one last time. His eyes met Rachel's through the viewport, a silent promise passing between them. They would finish this, and they would do it together. "Boarding teams ready, Commander," Torres confirmed, his voice steady over the comms. "Make it count, Captain," Rachel replied, her tone a mixture of trust and expectation. With a swift nod, Torres and his team launched from the Aegis, their maneuvering thrusters propelling them toward the beleaguered Zenthari flagship. As they closed the distance, the vastness of space seemed to contract, focusing on this singular act of defiance. The boarding pods slammed into the flagship's hull with a resounding impact, mag locks engaging to secure their position. Explosive charges breached the hull, and the teams poured inside, weapons at the ready. Inside the Zenthari vessel, chaos reigned. The corridors echoed with the sounds of combat as the humans advanced with relentless precision. They moved as one, a synchronized force that cut through the alien defenders with ruthless efficiency. Torres led the charge, his pulse rifle barking as he cleared a path through the opposition. The Zenthari fought back with desperation, their laser weapons carving glowing arcs through the air. But they were unprepared for the ferocity of the human assault, their ranks crumbling under the coordinated attack. As the boarding team pushed deeper into the ship, they reached the command center, a sprawling chamber filled with holographic displays and alien technology. The Zenthari commander stood at the center, his confidence eroding beneath the weight of impending defeat. You cannot do this," the commander snarled, his voice tinged with desperation. Torres raised his rifle, leveling it at the alien leader. "Watch us." With a single, decisive shot, the commander fell, his defeat a bitter reminder of the Zenthari's catastrophic misjudgment. The human boarding teams secured the command center, disabling the ship's systems and leaving the flagship adrift. Outside, the tide of battle had turned. The human fleet pressed their advantage, driving the Zenthari back with unrelenting force. One by one, the alien ships faltered, their defenses crumbling as the humans unleashed their full might. On the bridge of the Aegis, Rachel watched the Zenthari fleet fall into disarray, their once formidable armada reduced to a scattering of retreating ships. This was the moment of triumph, the point at which humanity proved its worth against an adversary that had dismissed them as inferior. "Commander, they're retreating," Chen called out, his voice tinged with triumph. Rachel allowed herself a rare smile, a flicker of victory shining in her eyes. "Let them run," she said, her tone resolute. "We've shown them what it means to underestimate humanity." As the remnants of the Zenthari fleet vanished into the depths of space, the human ships regrouped, their damaged hulls a testament to the fierce battle they had endured. But they had emerged victorious, their unity and determination carrying them through the crucible of combat. In the aftermath of the battle, the crew of the Aegis gathered in the mess hall, their spirits buoyed by the knowledge that they had achieved the impossible. Laughter and camaraderie filled the air, a celebration of their shared triumph. Rachel stood with them, a sense of pride swelling within her chest. They had faced an enemy that had sought to crush them, and they had emerged stronger than ever. As the humans reveled in their victory, the Zenthari were left to grapple with the consequences of their arrogance. They had underestimated the ingenuity, the adaptability, and the sheer tenacity of humanity, and it had cost them dearly. In the quiet of the command center, Rachel reflected on the journey that had brought them to this moment. They had come together, a disparate group of individuals united by a common purpose, and they had defied the odds to achieve the impossible. Humanity had triumphed, not through superior technology or overwhelming force, but through the strength of their spirit and the bonds that held them together. And in doing so, they had written a new chapter in the annals of history, a testament to the enduring power of the human race. As the stars wheeled overhead, the crew of the Aegis looked to the future with hope and determination, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. They were the defenders of Earth, the vanguard of a species that refused to be extinguished, and they would continue to fight for a tomorrow that was brighter than any they had ever dared to imagine. As the dust settled over the battlefield, the once chaotic and war-torn landscape began to reveal the emergence of life's resilience. The human victory over the Kutari Collective had been decisive, a turning point that rippled throughout the galaxy, ushering in a new era. Captain Adrian Locke stood at the command post, looking out over the horizon. The once bustling mercenary camp was now a sanctuary of hope and renewal. The human coalition had not only dismantled the oppressive regime of the Kutari but had also laid the groundwork for a new alliance of species built on cooperation and mutual respect. "Can you believe it, Captain?" Maria Chen, his trusted second in command, joined him, her eyes reflecting a newfound serenity. "We did it," Adrian nodded, a wry smile tugging at his lips. "We did, and now we rebuild." The mercenary unit, once a disjointed collection of rogues and outcasts, had transformed into a symbol of unity and resilience. Brothers and sisters in arms, they had risen to meet the challenge and in doing so, discovered the strength within themselves and each other. Each member of the team found their place in this new world, a purpose beyond the battlefield. Marcus, the grizzled veteran who had once scoffed at the idea of peace, now headed the humanitarian efforts, channeling his strategic mind into rebuilding cities and healing wounds that went deeper than flesh. His gruff demeanor softened in the presence of children who looked up to him, seeing not a soldier but a guardian. Lila, the sharp-witted pilot, had taken to the skies once more, this time ferrying supplies and aid instead of weapons. Her laughter became a common sound echoing through the hull of her ship, a testament to the freedom and joy she found in this new mission. Even the Kutari, those who had once been their fiercest adversaries, had found a place in this new order. The seeds of peace sown by humanity's example took root, as former enemies worked side by side with humans to forge a future where understanding and empathy replaced fear and suspicion. The Galactic Council, reformed with human representation, now served as a beacon of diplomatic progress, ensuring that the mistakes of the past were not repeated. With each passing day, the legacy of human courage and compassion grew, a lasting change that forever altered the course of the galaxy. As Adrian watched the sunset, casting a warm glow over the rebuilt landscape, he felt a profound sense of fulfillment. Humanity had not only survived but had thrived, planting the seeds of a lasting peace that would echo throughout the stars. "Captain, what's next?" Maria asked, her voice filled with anticipation for the future. Adrian turned to her, his eyes bright with determination. "We keep moving forward, Maria. We keep building, learning, and growing. It's what we've always done, and it's what will continue to define us." In that moment, as the first stars appeared in the twilight sky, Adrian knew that humanity's greatest adventure was just beginning. Their victory, hard-won and deeply felt, had set a precedent for what was possible when courage, hope, and solidarity guided their path. Humanity had changed the galaxy, and in doing so, had been changed as well. And so, under the watchful gaze of the stars, humanity and the galaxy embarked on this new chapter together, a testament to the indomitable spirit of those who dared to dream of a better world. The future was theirs, and it was one of hope.